to Between the Gigs, a podcast about the lives of musicians, conversations about creativity and careers and gig stories. And today I interview Janet Robin and Brian Radock. We talk about our tour with Soul Doctor. Hey, speaking of gigs, come to the Pangea Jazz Festival on August 23rd at 7 p.m. on the Lower East Side. It's gonna be super fun. It's super chill. It's the debut performance of the Wes Anderson Jazz Project, a project where we interpret the music of, lots of people, but music that was featured in Wes Anderson films. Music such as David Bowie, Nick Drake, The Velvet Underground. Yay! All right, it's going to be great. Enjoy the show. All right, and we're live. This is episode 3 of my podcast, which now I have a name for, actually. I'm calling it Between the Gigs.
Ooh, I like that.
Isn't that nice?
I like that.
It's like...
That's kind of like the story of our lives, isn't it?
It is. It's most of our lives is between the gigs. That's true. So my guests today, I have 2 fantastic guests. My first one, let's see, is Janet Robin, who's on with via Skype. Hi, Janet.
Hi. Greetings from Los Angeles.
Yes, that's right. That's where you are. That's where you are. Janet was the guitar player at Soul Doctor, the show that we all toured with that we're going to talk about today. And just to hype you up a little bit, Janet was a student of Randy Rhoads and was also in the, Lindsey Buckingham's band and toured with Air Supply. And she tours all over the world under her own name doing a solo project, and also runs this really cool band called String Revolution that is a bunch of really sick guitar players that do, I guess, mostly covers of songs. Is that right, Janet?
Actually, we do mostly originals, but we do have some covers, and because of the arrangements, we've gotten a little more attention on the covers, which is fine with me.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Do you mostly write the songs for the group, or does everybody contribute?
No, it's a democratic thing. We all write together, and
Nice.
Yeah.
Yay,
Thank you.
democracy.
Thanks for the shout out. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And my second guest is Brian Radock, who did I say that wrong?
No, it's Radock, but I like the second
fuck
R in there.
that.
I like Radock.
I like Radock better.
It should be my DJ name right
I think
there.
it should just be your name. But Brian was the drummer on the Broadway show The Illusionist. He performs frequently all over town in New York City at Carnegie Hall with various freelance groups, theater projects, orchestra works. He's a really terrific timpani player. He plays every instrument in the percussion arsenal. And he's a super...
As does his mother.
As does his mother, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to... So you are also from a musical family.
Oh yeah. So basically, my mom was a studio percussionist in Orlando, working at Disney originally, and she was the percussionist on Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid, the soundtracks and everything. And
Right.
she was pregnant with me during that time. So
That's funny. And it's really interesting to me that at that time, I guess Disney did all their recordings in Orlando because that's where, Disney World was, I guess.
Yeah, they were doing everything in-house because the animation studio was down there in Orlando.
Yeah.
And they were just hiring people to come in, and under lock and key, they would have them record these because they didn't want someone to take the music home. So you had to be a sight-reading beast to be able to do it.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So, and my stepdad, Danny Gottlieb, toured with Pat Metheny for a long time at the beginning of his career, and they're still doing it at this point, playing around the world, and I can't even keep up with them. I can't keep up with myself. So
That's because you're rad.
There it is.
So rad. Too rad.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so about a year ago, in fact, almost exactly a year ago, give or take, give a few months. Okay, not really exactly a year ago, but around a year ago, the 3 of us embarked on the adventure that would become the Soul Doctor tour. And what Soul Doctor is it's a musical based on the life of Shlomo Carlebach, the Rockin Rabbi, as I call him. And this production was probably like the third or fourth incarnation of this show that these two producers, Danny Wise and Jeremy Chess, have been trying to like pull off for years. And I say pull off because it's like a scam that they're trying to pull off.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think their intentions are good in some ways to tell the story.
It's weird, right? Because Shlomo Carlebach is this person who's like basically a saint, according to his mythology. Like he would give selflessly. He never asked for royalty on any of his records or anything like that. And here, the people most passionate about telling his story are these like two crooked Broadway producers. It's just kind of funny.
I think that, they were just disorganized in implementation of, running a full-on Broadway show. I do think their intentions were good, but they had trouble implementing it all, and unfortunately we got the brunt of it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think but there's something about this is not their first try at this. I mean, these two have been in the industry for a long time, and like, both.
Maybe I'm being too diplomatic.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think you're coming from the right. I think that there is some positivity buried somewhere.
I had been warned like a few different times from people that had worked on past things, as I was telling you guys during the time, that really watch yourself, and like you never know what can happen with these people. And
I know that.
Yeah, there were times that I was like, I don't know if it could be as bad as I'm being told to expect, but it kind of ended. I hated that they were right, but they were. My buddy Keith that worked on this production on a different one, I think he did the Broadway run.
Yeah.
And they kind of did pretty much the same type of thing to him that happened to this whole production. So, I thought if that had happened before, there's no way it could happen again. There's no way they're gonna just keep with that like reputation. But here we are.
Yeah, I mean that's the music business.
Right.
Yeah, I got an inkling of that when I first talked to Danny. Wasn't sure, he wasn't clear about a lot of things. But when I talked to Bill and a few other people, I was like, oh, okay, I mean, it sounds kind of like it's, together. And I got referred by somebody I really respect.
Right.
And
yeah, me too, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she knew Danny and had worked on something with him before, I guess. And so, I mean, I went for it,
and just to say, like, everybody that was working on the actual production of this thing, I met so many great friends and had some great, like, I mean, people all know for the rest of my life. Yeah.
The crew itself. Yeah.
Yeah. The cast, the crew, the director, choreographer, everybody was just such a pleasant person to work with.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what made like the falling out of all of this hurt a little bit more, because it was such a great product we were starting to put together here.
Yeah.
Well, they had gotten this great group of talented people together, crew and cast, and then it just all blew up, which is just so disappointing.
Yeah. Well, let's start at the beginning for people that don't know what we're talking about. So I want to take us back to sort of like your initial call for this gig, like how you were introduced to Soul Doctor, and what your sort of first impressions of what this project was going to be like. Why don't we start with Brian?
Well, I was approached by Bill Mead from who was our company manager. And
for a time,
like it's a question about how long that was or wasn't happening.
Right.
But he had hired me on some other things, and he basically was saying this is going to be something that it's going to be really special because you're going to have a lot of input into how this thing gets developed, because we're going to take a long time to really do this the right way. And I want someone that can be a drummer and a percussionist, be able to play some mallet stuff on it, some hand drum stuff on it, some drum set, and it's all going to be on stage, and we're going to be doing an international tour. So to have my name on something as like kind of a co-writer, like in the drum department and everything, along with the potential of, okay, this is what the initial run is going to look like, but we're really intending to bring this thing to Broadway and do a lot with this. So I mean, I had a lot of other things going on and a couple other international tours that I really had to sit with and decide which one I'm going to pick. And this is the one I wanted to do because how much of a say and influence I could have over what the parts were, along with just seeing the incredible talent already attached to this. So, you know, this is why I jumped on board and everything.
Yeah. What was it like for you, Janet?
Well, it was a similar situation, although I was approached by Danny. And again, the referral came from a very good person I really respect. And when he first talked to me, it sounded, I just got the New York thing. And then, over here on the, West Coast, we're always weary of that. I don't know why. Must be the accent, I'm going to sell you a car, get you a good deal here,
Yeah.
But no,
he was like a used car salesman.
Yeah, he did sound rather genuine, but in some ways, and it was the same thing, this is going to be a really special production, and it was very intriguing to me because, normally when you're asked to be, a musician in a musical, you're in the pit, and I honestly, because I come from a rock background. I'm not some kind of great reader. There is no first chair electric guitar for me. It's like I am the chair, That's it.
Right.
I don't know what that is, So, and I told him, I said, listen, I'm a rock musician, I just go on tour with people or I do my own thing, and I don't read a ton of music. He's like, that isn't what this is. You're going to be on stage. It's going to be like a rock band on stage. We want that. And then for you, it's going to be even more special because you're going to have a part. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. And he's like, no, it's real little part, not a lot of lines, and you get to teach guitar. And I was like, oh, well, I already do that too, And he's like, it's funny, and you'll have a good time, and it's not a big orchestra type of thing.
Sure.
And I was like, well, this sounds great,
Yeah.
Like Brian, I had other things planned, touring wise, and other things I had to move around to make this work because. And then, of course, I'm also living in Los Angeles, and everything, in the beginning was going to be in New York. So, I had to move out there. I had to really seriously consider, dropping everything here and moving out there for an entire month or long. I didn't quite know exactly how long it was going to be, but so I did because it sounded so intriguing to me. It sounded like, a Jewish hair.
Yeah, totally.
And I was like, wow, I want to be a part of this. This is cool. And the stress of being this, orchestral guitarist was off because I made that really clear that that's not what I do. And he's like, no, we want, what you do. And you're going to have actually a solo, in the show, and you can do your own thing and this and that. And I was like, okay, sign up,
And also the intrigue for me that this was like the story itself is based around music being a great unifier.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It's really it's a huge message that music is something that can unite all sorts of people. And I thought that was a special part of the show that I wanted to really tap into.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm actually Jewish, and I had never heard of Shlomo.
Wait, you're Jewish? No, I'm kidding. Everybody on the show is Jewish, Janet.
That's not true.
Well, no, it's not. But a lot of,
That's actually not true. A lot of the cast wasn't.
Yeah, I suppose.
Right?
I suppose.
Yeah.
I guess it was for me like I'm going to
I
talk
never,
about my how
I
I got.
know.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I never heard of Shlomo. I'd never
Right.
even
No, I hadn't either. He's an odd choice for like a protagonist in terms of a commercial viability. But
right. I thought that was interesting though too. And
yeah.
I was like, okay, this is an interesting story,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, well, my intro to this, at the time, I was like really trying to hustle to get a subbing gig on Broadway, and I had been doing the thing that young musicians do, where you go to orchestras and you watch the players play the book, and then afterwards you have a beer with them and you try to see if they'll let you sub for them or something. And I had been doing that for a while, and one of the shows I went to see was Groundhog Day, and the bass player there is this great bass player named Brian Ham, and I went to Groundhog Day, and he said he was full of subs, and I said, cool. And then a couple of weeks later, I got an email from Rick Fox saying that Brian had recommended me for this gig, and so, again, like that recommendation lent some legitimacy to what I thought this was going to be. And they said we were going on this international tour where first we're going to San Diego, then Los Angeles, and then Israel. And like I was super excited. It seemed like such a big deal to me. And, that was, I agreed pretty quick. There were some things I had to move around as well, but not other major tours. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me at the time. So then rehearsals start, and we are rehearsing in the basement of this synagogue in Midtown, right next to the Hammerstein Ballroom. And we get there the first day, and like
it's actually next to Sam Ash, isn't it?
Yes, yes, yes. To be all right, fine. I get that's not as cool sounding, but sure. Yeah, it was next to a Sam Ash, and the Sam Ash was next to the ballroom. I think it was on the same block.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we get there the first day, and we meet everybody, and like right from the beginning, what was super cool about this is that okay, so we were in rehearsals for 8 hours a day for the first month. And that is not typically the experience of musicians in a theater production. Like typically they rehearse the actors with a pianist, and then towards the end of the rehearsal schedule, they'll bring in the orchestra, and the orchestra kind of, just does a couple run-throughs, and then they're ready for the show. But to be involved with the creative process from the beginning was
cool.
Amazing, right?
That was super cool.
Yeah.
I'm at, because of my background, that's what I'm actually more used to.
Oh, sure. Okay.
When you get ready for a big rock tour,
Yeah.
you're rehearsing 8 hours a day. You're planning.
I didn't realize that.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. It makes sense.
Yeah, and you're planning out every move and what you're doing in every song and the banter.
In terms of like choreography?
Well, in a way, I mean,
Yeah.
I wasn't in Prince's band. I wasn't,
Right.
doing dance moves. But there are choreography moments that you get together with certain people in the
Right.
band. There's banter. You talk on stage when you don't talk. This and that. So yeah, I mean, all the major tours I've done, it's like that. It's the same way.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was in my element. I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
What was interesting on my end was that we had a music copyist with us during that whole process, and normally when you're doing a theater show, you go in and there's a already written book, and for this one there really wasn't. There were a bunch of different maps of like keyboard charts, and Rick and I got to discuss a lot of what we wanted to do, and and he another big part that intrigued me is he wanted a lot of different percussion and some mallets and some drum set. And my drum set, by the way, on this one, they had me do a cocktail kit, which was really cool. And I'd never played a cocktail kit. And
can you explain what a cocktail kit is?
Yeah. So basically, if you think about a floor tom, this was like about twice as tall. It's like a a tom that's like a floor tom that's about the size of like a 12-year-old kid. I mean, it's a tall tom, and on the bottom there's a kick pedal, so it hits the bottom head, and on top it's your little floor tom there, and then it branches out with some mounts to have like a snare drum and a little tom there and some cymbals. And the meaning behind it is to have the drummer like be able to stand up when they're playing. So it added another element to us being on stage and not having the drummer being hidden behind a drum set.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up going out and getting a whole like cocktail kit to be able to do this and everything. Wow. And it was so cool that we were just in very much creative mode to be able to say like, this one would actually be really cool on hand drums. Let's try that. And actually, let's maybe do a little bit of mallets there. And it was just like the whole creative process of building this entire part up, and everybody being so open to each other's ideas was something I absolutely loved at the beginning of this.
Yeah. And Brian was literally building his drum set like throughout rehearsals. It would just keep getting bigger and bigger, and he'd have all these little hooks on it and stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had like a set of congas, a set of bongos, the cocktail kit, a set of vibes, 2 different djembes, an array of different like little percussion instruments, and I kept bringing suitcases of different like percussion instruments like almost every day to rehearsal, being like, what if we just add this thing on there? And I mean, my setup was so big, it made a U around me, and I could like take a nap between them when we were on break or something.
Yeah. He had like a little fort.
Oh yeah, it was great.
So our director, Gabriel Barr, was he there the first week? I can't remember.
I think he wasn't there for a few days, but because we were mostly doing music stuff at the beginning.
Because a lot of the actors had to play instruments in the show. That was another sort of selling point of the idea of this production. It was a little bit supposed to be like the show Once, where the actors played instruments and the musicians acted a little bit. So our first week was a lot helping the actors play their instruments. And actually, it really reminded me. I texted my mom after the first week that it was like a little bit like being at a Jewish summer camp, because we would get there and we'd play our instruments, and then after our nap and lunchtime, we would practice. We went up and did that choir rehearsal.
Yeah.
And then we would do choreography with the dancers, and like I don't think we got into any of our acting scenes until later, but. The 3 of us did act on stage, which was really fun, actually. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So we're in rehearsal. Oh, let me explain a little bit what the plot of Soul Doctor is so that you guys can understand. So it's all about this guy, Shlomo Carlebach, who is a Orthodox Jew from Vienna. His family emigrates to America during World War II, and he comes from a long line of rabbis. And he grows up and becomes a rabbi himself, but he comes of age in the 60s, and at this time he decides that he doesn't want to be a rabbi who only helps people in his community. So he moves out to San Francisco, and he founds the House of Love and Prayer. And there he welcomes people of all faiths and sort of teaches them about Jewish principles, and just gives young people a chance to sort of find themselves and have a spiritual sort of community together. And the play culminates with him returning to Vienna to sing some of the songs that he's wrote for the Viennese, who essentially, assisted in killing his family and such. It's a story about forgiveness and the power of music. There's also a subplot where he sort of falls in love with Nina Simone, but not really. They're friends, but they kiss, and it's weird. But
is kind of known as like the hippie rabbi.
Yeah.
Right. And and he's exploring lots of different styles of music, which was
Right.
also unusual for a rabbi in
Right.
general.
Especially an Orthodox rabbi, yeah. And he
Yeah.
gets a lot of heat for that.
Right.
Now, who here had heard of Shlomo Carlebach beforehand?
Nope, not
Not me.
even.
Not me.
I was
Said-
like, what kind of name is Shlomo? That's a.
Oh, that's a great name.
I thought it was a fake name. That's funny. I was like, what's his real name? That's got to be a stage name.
No, I had to look his name up, honestly, and I mean, I've been bat mitzvahed and the whole deal.
Right. That's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. This is why, as a financial move, it's a risky idea for a story, because this guy is only famous within the Orthodox Jewish community, basically, to my understanding. I mean, like, my hometown rabbi had heard about him. Like, he had sent me an email when he found out that I was doing this show. But my family didn't know who he was. I had no idea who he was. Nobody else knew who he was.
Yep.
And the Orthodox Jews who know who this guy is, I think for the most part, don't like him because he left the community. And
Right.
they're very leery of that. So in order to make this play marketable, it can't be just marketed to Jews. And that's exactly what they try to do every time that they've done this show. When it was on Broadway for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, however long it lasted there, I heard that this was kind of the same problem. Like, it got a lot of rave reviews from, like, Jewish groups and papers and stuff, but they didn't sell tickets because they weren't trying to reach out to, and sell this as just a story about, the power of music and stuff like that.
And from what I've heard, there was also like why they emphasized the Nina Simone part. When in real life, apparently they didn't have as many interactions, and they really like emphasized that they had a like deeper relationship than what I think was happening in real life.
Right.
Just so it had a broader appeal, so that they could like put Nina Simone's name on it,
Right.
and then it's like, okay, I like Nina Simone, and that's from what I've heard was why they really played into that more.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's probably not a bad idea.
Right.
And we got this incredible Israeli star, Esther Rada, to come play Nina Simone.
Oh, she was incredible.
Amazing. Such a great singer, great performer, and just wonderful person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in this cast was just like mind-bogglingly good.
Yeah.
It was so awesome.
So let's start to talk about, like, what was your sort of first signs that things were going wrong, that things were going to head the way that they did?
I remember
Let's talk about my apartment in Brooklyn.
Okay. Let's talk about
yes, yeah, let's go.
Well, I've stayed in all kinds of places, but initially I was like, all right, it's going to be an apartment, fine. I'm used to hotel rooms, that's typically what happens, right? But Danny Wise, I guess, apparently owns a hotel, apartment building in Brooklyn. And it was described to me one way, but then when I showed up, it was like, okay, well, there is heat, but it doesn't work so well. So you have to use heaters, and it's February. And
right.
he's like, well, you can take as many heaters as you want, and I was like, okay, well, that's fine. All right, I'll do that. And then blankets. And of course, I had to move from one place to another because it wasn't that comfortable, but eventually it worked out. It's just that it wasn't exactly how it was explained to me to begin with,
Right.
So I was like, all right, sometimes people, they exaggerate housing, and
Right.
this. So I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to, freeze to death. And the oven works. The dishwasher didn't, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm having a cool experience in Brooklyn.
Right. Yeah.
And that's fine. Then the transportation, taking the subway, I got used to all that. I can pretty much eventually get used to anything. But at the beginning, I was like, this is a little strange. It feels a little strange, because it was like, Danny owned the building. There was something weird.
Yeah. I
It wasn't-
can't go on enough about how many little things like that that happened while we were still in New York. Just little things that just felt like off, you know.
Went with it, and I mean, I'm still friends with our fantastic travel coordinator, Diana.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, and I mean, we like you and several of the other cast members. You know, we still stay in touch.
Yeah.
But Diana was great, and I think she was led down the wrong path too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no
About-
question.
About a lot of information, but she was always so nice, trying to make sure, is everything okay at the apartment? Are you all right? You know, and this and that. So I went with it, but that was the first initial thing.
Yeah.
That I was like, all right, well, let's see where this goes. You know.
Right. Brian?
Yes.
For me, well, there was something that started to tip me off about where our rehearsal location was for that month of February.
Yeah, that's another one.
Because, like, you know, when I found out, okay, we're going to be rehearsing, like, I think it was like sometimes 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Like, and it was in the basement of the synagogue, and there were no windows. There was so much dust down there that it's like they haven't been used in like 2 years or something. And I mean, there are a lot of different rules when it comes to like equity contracts for the actors and everything that they have to kind of adhere to. And, you know, there were times when I was like, okay, I can kind of, I guess, maybe talk myself into if they were really going to be able to try and save this much money, then it must be going towards the actual tour itself. And, you know, but then there were parts of that at the same time that was like, okay, you know, there are strict rules laid out for people in equity contracts, and if they're pretty much blatantly ignoring that, what else might they ignore in the future? And, you know, when it really started to be like, there's something weird here, was when we found ironically, the housing out in...
I was going to get to that.
Oh, yeah, in San Diego, when we fly all the way out there and everything. And
we're so excited.
Just so pumped about this. Everyone, like, the energy was palpable. And we are brought to the
Fantasio Suites.
Oh, that's what it was. That's right. Oh, I just got chills.
The Fantasio Suites. Go ahead.
Luckily, I missed that whole episode.
Oh yeah, because you got to stay.
That was like, so like it was basically,
it was a hostel.
Yeah, it was an international students hostel.
Yeah,
and it seemed like it used to be like a dorm for maybe a nearby university that they turned into a hostel.
Yeah,
and we're talking like, there's no closet. There's just like a metal pipe above like the bed. No kitchens. Yeah. Also things that are in equity contracts, and some of the guys didn't even have like a window in their room.
Right.
And it was one of those that, like,
I think.
I mean, I saw some of the equity things that were laid out, and they didn't adhere to any of them. And it was just, wow, you possibly found an even lower budget place in San Diego.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that like everybody was just kind of like, is this what we're gonna live in for the next 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's gonna happen. And they like,
that was the beginning of the mutiny.
Yeah, and in a way, it seemed like for a second I was like giving the benefit of the doubt of like some oversight or something, and like maybe they just didn't quite realize, and they'll fix this pretty quickly. But I remember our producers at the top, which it always comes back to them, because like there were so many other people in the administrative part that were doing an amazing job and just trying to reassure us that they're doing what they can.
Yeah.
But it came down to like them almost being like upset that we were upset about that. And it's like, that's not a good way to build a relationship at the beginning of what's supposed to be 4 months of being on the road, maybe more from what they were always saying.
Yeah. So let me explain a few things. For them to do a show like this, they needed to hire equity actors, and those are professional actors who are in the union, and there are certain rules that they need to adhere to for standards of living.
The SAG of the theater world.
Of the theater world, yeah, exactly.
The equity is
now.
That.
For us, for the musicians, we agreed to do this non-union, which was definitely, and another one of those warning signs. The musicians union is just not as strong as the actors union, and unfortunately, we just don't have the kind of collective bargaining to like make sure that these jobs are union all the time. And if we had passed on them, probably someone else would have accepted them, and the money was pretty good, so we all decided to take the gig. But
most of my gigs anyway are non-union.
oh yeah, even with like Air Supply or like those big,
yeah, none of them go through you.
Huh?
None. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to sign a contract, a separate freelance contract.
Yeah.
So that's how I did it. You know, I negotiated my own terms and all of that.
Yeah.
So it's completely not union or anything.
So this was gonna be my big first like theater tour,
right?
When it came to that, and like I've done a lot of other tours with like bands and things that were international, and normally when like pretty much none of those are union, and a lot of times when you're doing like some of your initial like theater international tours, there's a lot of times that they are non-union, especially if it goes international. They don't really have any say over that, and there are a lot of tours out there that are non-union, so it's not very much of a like
yeah, that wasn't a red light to me.
Right. That was just kind of like, all right, this is what it is, and that's more of like
I guess
a whole different conversation about the music industry as a whole.
Right. Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
Marty.
that'll be episode 4.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the thing that we started to see over and over again is how much the producers would try to like skimp on things and save a penny, and just how bad of an idea it always was, because like moving us into the Vantaggio suites maybe would have saved them a little bit of money, but the fact that, you know, it was illegal for the equity rules, and we had to the actors threw a revolt. They had to move them into they had to move all of us into another hotel, and to do that after we had already been in San Diego must have been so much more expensive for them. It's all these like little shortcuts they tried to take that ultimately ended them costing them more. It's really a lot like Fire Festival when you think about it.
Wow.
You know, like these guys had an idea. They sold it to everybody they could. You know, the people involved, the people they were trying to sell it to. But they didn't have all the pieces in place, and then they just figured they could do it on the fly, and they didn't have the funding, even though they were self-funding it. So they did have the funding, they just didn't want to spend the money.
Well, and one of the other big red flags for me during our initial time in San Diego getting the show ready was, you know, anytime you do a tour, whether it's a small band or something bigger than that, especially if it's like a theater show, the town is normally painted with different promotions and like billboards and just signs everywhere. There's like commercials on TV, and that's like how people know that a big show is going on with all these really talented New York like actors, musicians, and crew without like painting the town. And I remember walking around being like, there's nothing out here, there's no promotion, and it was like they didn't even have a promotion budget. And I remember them asking us at one time like to go around and pass out flyers and put up flyers, and it was like wait, that's literally not our job. I mean, and if you're asking us to do that, like
it's like one of those dinner theater gigs where you're acting and you're also like serving the tables.
Right. And you know, I always tell up and coming bands when they ask me for like, who should I hire first, an agent or a manager? And I say, no, hire a promoter first. Like, you really want to get yourself out there. Your promotion team, especially nowadays with how many things can take another person's like attention. Yeah. I mean, promoting is a huge aspect of any success that comes from theater or shows, and there seem to be like barely any.
Yeah, I noticed that over here too in LA, because you know, of course, they were coming to the Saban Theater, which is literally down the street from where I live, and there was no promotion. When I was telling my friends, you know, you got to come, you know, and they're like, I had what is this? I never saw anything about this. There was a listing on the Saban website, but it was like the whole ticket situation, all of it was strange.
Really
Mhm.
strange.
Yeah, really strange. And I did have some people that ended up buying some tickets, which, of course, as we all know, in the production, the LA run got canceled.
Yeah.
So, all those people did get their money back. But that was also like, I mean, for me, I've just been doing this a long time, and that was just not a good thing for my career.
Right.
Like,
Mhm.
Yeah, that hurt you personally.
And
well, it did. I know I don't want to sound like I'm some, not everybody knows me or something like that. It's just that
Well, they will after this podcast.
I have set up a name for myself in the music scene out here in
Yeah.
LA, since I am from here, born and raised, and been doing this a long time out here. And I was just, pushing this show and wanting to get everybody I could from,
Mm-hmm.
all the different projects I've been involved in, and come on, and I'm going to be in this show too. I have a part,
Yeah.
and then it just like gets canceled, and then everybody's come, what happened, what's going, and then I have to like explain, and
Right, of course. Yeah.
Mhm.
Jeez. It's
that was
embarrassing.
very awkward, and I was not happy about that.
Yeah. I remember in the theater that we performed in San Diego is like in a sort of shopping complex, and it's like an underground theater. But the only poster for our show was like on the window of that theater, and I have a picture of my cell phone where like the poster is like falling down, and it's next
remember
to like
that.
these two posters for like local shows. One of them is called Bear Spray, which I guess is like a gayer version of Hairspray, and then the other one was Beach Town, which we watched a YouTube video for where I don't even know what it's about, but the video was like, Beach Town, life is a beach for us. And they were outselling us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like,
Now that was disappointing. I was scouring social media, and the internet for any press I could, to
Yeah.
see what's going on with that. And then I started having my doubts when I didn't see what Brian was saying. I didn't see the typical promotion you would see for even a smaller production like this.
Yeah.
And that poster you're talking about, like you said, the theater is downstairs, the one in San Diego.
Yeah.
So you can't even see that poster from where people are walking around in the shopping center.
Yeah.
So, and even my friends in San Diego, they're like, what? There's a play? What?
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have friends in San Diego, and, they end up coming and everything, but they had heard nothing about it, didn't see anything on their social media, didn't see anything in the local papers, didn't see any posters, didn't see any flyers, nothing.
Yeah.
And again, it's like it was our two producers and our company manager Bill that kept reassuring us even through all these little doubts. Like, okay, I had nothing to do with that. I asked for them for this, and it was just constantly passing blame and being like, "Oh, we reassure you that it's going to be fine." And we had so much faith in all of the cast and crew and like musicians that we were like, okay, I hope you're not shooting yourself in the foot. Like that would be like insane to think that I was actually right about this and ended up being right about it.
Honestly, like the amazing thing about being involved in this process or just being on this team is like every show we did in San Diego, like people went nuts. I mean, those theaters were not packed the way they should have been, but like it was just such
We got
good production with the material we had, which the writing was not always that, sharp. It was a little hacky at times, but just the performances and the direction and everything, like it was something.
Mm-hmm.
Something. It was special. We all I think, I took this really personal when it fell apart, and, we weren't able to go and continue with the production. Right. I actually took it very personal, which I try not to do in my jobs. But I think because I did put some things on hold, I moved some things around, and, we all got very close, and we all really wanted to make this a special show. And spent hours and hours practicing and trying to get things really good. And especially for my solo, I tried different things because they were always like, they were not very clear. They couldn't explain to me exactly what it was they
Right.
wanted me to
Yeah.
do when they originally said, you can do whatever you want, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So it was, the communication was complicated, and that I put 200% of my professionalism into this
Yeah.
project, which I typically do anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
I just gave it a little bit more. You know, this was the biggest project I was involved in, is as compared to other, you know, tours, as far as many, you know, how many cast members and crew and everything. There was a lot of us, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Uh, and you know, it just felt like the family just like broke up,
Yeah.
you know. And maybe I'm too nostalgic about it, but you know, I really put a lot into my performances, everything I do, and this one was special. And we really, I think we all rose to the occasion,
Yeah.
under strange circumstances, under communication that wasn't always clear, under writing that was constantly changing.
That
um,
too.
and with that, you know, we had a fantastic musical director.
Rick
He was
Fox,
under
yeah.
a lot of stress. He had to constantly change the arrangements, which then we had to constantly, you know, relearn new arrangements. They
Mhm.
were always being changed. And we, you know, by the time of opening night, you know, we totally rose to the occasion, man.
Yeah.
We kissed it, you know. And then just have the whole rug pulled under us, you know, it was really it was disappointing.
Yeah.
'Cause and I actually got to say that to one of the producers on the phone,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm glad I got to say that to him. But you know, his response was, "Well, you're a pro. You should be used to this. You know, things.
Danny Weiss.
Wow.
You know, these things happen all the time to you. You know,
Oh,
things come and
it-
go."
not to say like it's like they're not wrong when they say that, but at the same time, what an awful way to respond to something like that you are clearly responsible for.
And also, things
Ugh.
like this don't happen all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, things of this level, like there's a lot of little things here and there, but things on a level like this, I've never felt so offended about how something like fell apart. And I mean,
Me too. And
Yeah.
we were lied to. It was very confusing. Nobody could make any plans.
well,
We
and,
had all put our lives on hold.
and the initial like offer that came in was it was something like it was like 5 weeks of rehearsal. Actually, I believe it was 6. It was like 5 or 6 weeks of rehearsal, a month in San Diego. I think it was like 3 weeks in LA, and then
Yeah.
we were going to go to Israel for 2 months.
With a
And
possibility of an extension.
Yeah.
and the extension was the thing they always talked about, like extending in Israel and maybe bringing it to like a different country and all of this stuff, and extending into a much bigger like world tour. So we're talking like right off the bat a good 5-6 months
Yeah.
like of what this was going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm
So let me fill in the listeners what sort of happened in the chain of events when this thing fell apart, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about, you know, some of the fun memories from the tour, because it wasn't all bad. It was really, you know,
It was all really good. It
Yeah.
was just
yeah,
the other side, the
Yeah.
business.
that's what I heard about it, was
Yeah,
that
it was really
a
super
lot
fun.
of fun.
Yeah.
I made some friends for life, like I was saying, and not just like musician friends and actor friends, but like backstage friends that were like working on wardrobe, working in the crew, working on tech, and all of this other stuff. And I mean, it was just like there weren't anybody in there that had like malicious intent and didn't give everything that they could, except for our 3 guys at the top, you know.
Yeah.
And anyway, yeah, I'll let you fill them in with
right.
opening night.
So here's what happened. So we've been rehearsing the show for a month in New York. Finally, we arrive in San Diego 3 weeks before opening night, which is pretty typical, because what you have to do is tech the show in the actual theater and also put the finishing touches on it. That's not what happens when you go city to city. If you're on a longer tour, you don't need 3 weeks of tech in the new theater. You only need a couple days. But since this was our first stop on the tour, we were going to do most of the tech there, since we hadn't really performed on the stage with all the equipment and stuff like that. So as I mentioned, we get off the plane and they fly us they put us in cabs over to the Vantaggio Suites, which we arrive at. And it's...
Just the name of that is like...
Yeah, I know. It's fun to say. The Vantaggio Suites. And we show up in the courtyard and there's a bunch of like 20-somethings like smoking weed and stuff like that, which was great.
California.
Yeah. And not only were like the cast and crew there, like they put our creatives there too. Rick Fox, our veteran music director, was supposed to live in this dormitory, it was ridiculous. So over the course of the next day or two, we're like having meetings. We're always getting together all the time. We start this group chat via text that we're constantly, on like just venting and stuff. And we go to pick up instruments and the instruments aren't any good. We're supposed to have these cars so that we can sort of, get to and from the gig and like also explore the areas and stuff. And the rental cars aren't available because nobody made the rentals, nobody took care of that, all this stuff. Meanwhile, we're in the theater all day teching the show and, talking about all these warning signs, and some of the actors are watching the ticket sales in LA via an app or something like that, and people realize they're not selling tickets, and all this tension is building, and everybody's kind of like freaking out about whether we're going to have jobs or not. And so our star, Josh Young, eventually says, okay, we need to get an answer from this right away. We're going to talk about it today, or we're not going to do the show. So, something to that effect. And this was supposed to be our opening night. So Bill Meade flew in. I guess he was going to fly in for opening night anyway, but to sort of sit us down and talk and tell us what was happening. And what he says is that LA is canceled. They weren't selling tickets. And they were worried that if the Israeli producers came to LA and saw that they weren't selling tickets, then the Israeli portion of the tour wouldn't happen. Now, we probably discovered later that this was bullshit and that the Israeli producers were really our producers. They just, didn't want to accept blame by themselves. But LA was canceled. We weren't being paid for it because we hadn't signed contracts for LA yet. But don't worry, everybody's still going to Israel. We love this production. We want you guys all in Israel. And just keep an ear out for what's going to happen.
And it was this meeting was with everybody involved.
Yeah, right before
literally
right before
an
the first
hour
show
before opening show. Literally an hour.
Preparation, good mental preparation.
I remember just like being a good 30 minutes into this meeting and just walking out. Just standing up and being like, I can't listen. I can't listen to this guy saying like, oh, blah, blah, blah. This not my fault. It's not my fault. And it's like, you're the company manager, dude. That's like, that literally is your thing. It's your job. And thinking like, oh, if they weren't promoting in the city that we're sitting in and it's opening night,
right, exactly.
I doubt there's one flyer in LA. So the question of, was LA ever even going to happen? Like immediately came to mind.
Yeah,
it was because I did see it on the website, and I did have friends buy tickets, but it didn't last long.
Well, it's all part of their smoke and mirror show because really all they were concerned about was Israel, and like doing this West Coast tour was really just to like say to the Israel people, like, look, it's touring on the West Coast. People love this show. Like. It was all Fire Festival. It's all Instagram models, like it has they don't worry about the reality of it. Oh, and there's one more crucial detail I forgot to mention from this meeting is when Bill told us that we were all going to Israel, he said, no, like, I want to tell you the truth here, which is weird at this point to say this one part. What we're trying to do in Israel is create something like the Blue Man Group that runs for a long time. So we're going to bring you out for this month or whatever, which is already less than it was supposed to be. And then our goal is to replace everybody with Israeli actors and local people. And it's like, what?
Yeah,
That's the plan?
Yeah, after this whole time of like, we're gonna make this a whole world tour and bring it back to Broadway, and it was like, wait, so like, that's not gonna happen, and we're
Right.
just gonna basically be training our own replacements.
Yeah.
And
Right. Again, Fire Festival.
yeah,
Like, promised, fancy meals. You get there, it's ham and cheese sandwiches. That's what they were. That's what they were selling.
with the cheese and the wrapper still.
Right. So we perform opening night, and we kill it. Everybody does their job, and it's fantastic. And for how many weeks did we perform? It's like 3 weeks, maybe.
It was like 4 weeks. Well,
It was a month, like
yeah, it was a whole month, and
After
I think
we
the
opened?
first, like,
Yeah, I guess so.
it was like I think it was like 3 weeks after opening
Yeah.
night is what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the 3 weeks that we're in San Diego performing this show, like giving it our all every night, we still don't receive contracts for Israel. We're still in the same like sort of waiting that we've been doing this whole time of just like, is this happening? Like, what's going on? Like gossiping with each other about what we've heard here or there. And we get to closing night in San Diego, and we still don't know if Israel is happening. Some of us don't have plane tickets home. A lot of us had sublet our apartments.
You don't have a place to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I ended up staying on the road for a couple extra weeks after the tour just because I had sublet my apartment, and I was like, I'm going to just enjoy myself and have a little adventure.
Came here?
Yeah, we went to Magic Castle. It was great. Yeah, so basically after closing night, little by little, we get these emails popping into our inbox from Bill saying, sorry, that's what he says. I just found out they're not taking you to Israel, sorry, whatever, like a couple sentences. And also the implication that he just found out, which is not true. And little by little, basically everybody got fired. Everybody in the production, all the creatives, the director, the choreographer, the music director, and then all the actors, all the musicians, except for our 2 stars, Josh Young and Esther Rada. And Esther quit right away because she's got a lot of integrity. I mean, so does Josh, but it was super cool of Esther to quit. And they brought 2 understudies to the leads.
And we were all replaced. They cut the cast down though quite a bit.
Yeah.
And they hired Israeli artists.
I remember getting a message in like with not even like the beginning of a sentence capitalized saying, we can't financially afford to have you out there, and thanks for your service, appreciate it.
Right.
And it was just like, wait, that's how you're gonna break this to me?
I also got 2 emails from Bill on one like on a Monday saying, sorry, I just found out we can't take you, thanks. And then one like a week later saying, oh, sorry, we just found out we can't take you.
Yeah. It was one of those that like I remember thinking, okay, there's a lot of me that has to question where my values stand right now, where even if they had said, we want you to come on this, the way they had mistreated and just dropped so many people,
you would have had to really consider it.
Yeah. And just the whole contract tidbit that what they kept stringing us along with is like, it's being extended and we're working out that, so we can't like actually get you to sign that, even though, and our initial contract was like at least through LA, and then the Israel one was the one that was being extended. And that's one of the big lessons that I learned talking to some legal people after this, was that that like they were trying to make promises that they knew they probably weren't going to keep.
Right.
And I mean,
but why do that? My question is, why even do that? Why even do that?
Yeah, I'm with you. The payoff is not, you never win doing that. Maybe you don't lose as much, but it's like, these people have to know that their reputation is garbage. They can try to do this again with another bunch of people that, don't know the industry, but ultimately that means that they're pulling from a less established talent pool, and, they're going to have more problems.
Yeah, yeah. I think they're probably done with this production.
I'm not sure. About that. Janet, did you hear that they tried to do a promo video of their Israel show in New York a couple of months ago?
No, what happened?
It's funny. Eric found a posting about it in one of those apps that tells you about cool things about town.
Yeah.
Eric Greengold, who was one of the actors on our show. And he shared it with the group chat, and basically, it was a filmed version of the Israel show, and they were doing a showing of it at some hotel for potential investors or something. And Brian went.
Oh,
He did?
The second I got this, and
it was awesome.
Oh yeah,
he sent a picture of himself,
and I was busy doing something that night, and I was like, no, those plans just got canceled because I'm gonna go over and
Were they there? Did they see you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, what happened?
Oh, so I go over there because I want to see what this is and get some documentation of what they're doing there, and basically it was a closed showing of the Soul Doctor movie, and I just kind of went in. I was just distinctly got there 10 minutes late so that I could go up to the guy and be like, "Hey, sorry, I'm in a rush. I get downstairs. My fiance's sitting in there," and they were like, "Oh yeah, sure, go ahead." It was so easy, and so I go down there and just kind of walk my way into this dark movie theater that had probably 40 people in it, and they play the entire show. I'm
sure without getting permission from the proper people as well.
Well, I'm on the group text texting all the people and saying, and Josh eventually said, this is going to be a small snippet to promote it. And he had been guaranteed that it wouldn't be the full show. And with lots of contract stipulations behind this, but they blatantly ignored those because they knew he wouldn't be there. So I got some video of him showing the whole show, and he basically is taking it into his own hands to do something about it with them. And I haven't heard how that played out, but I definitely they all know that I was there because they saw me afterwards. And I mean, okay, I'll just say it. I'll just say it because I have no interest in working with Bill Meade again because and I'll read a quote about him. I saw Bill when he walked outside because I was just standing there waiting, and I said, "Hey, Bill." And he turns around and looked at me quizzically, and I took my hat off and said, "What? You don't recognize me? Oh. It's Brian." And I just had to say, "You're kind of a piece of shit, dude."
Oh yes.
and so when someone calls you a piece of shit, there are a lot of different ways you can react to that.
Right.
But the way he did it, he shrugged his shoulders and looked at me kind of like, what can I do? And it was almost an acknowledgement of I
am a piece of shit.
He didn't argue with it, just shrugged his shoulders and walked in the other direction. And it was just just wow. I
ran into Bill too in January at a same kind of thing. He was trying to be nice to me, and he's like, I couldn't do. My hands were tied.
Well, when I had posted something about this that, it was someone wrote to me, I'm afraid to ask, is Bill Meade still attached to this show in any way? He was on the original, and the contractor who sent me out worldwide for most of my touring life. He's also widely known as a walking disaster sociopath. This situation smells like a Bill Meade production. And this is before I had even mentioned his name.
Right.
So then I had said, yeah, it is. And he wrote, "Oh my, I see I smelled it. I see. I smelled it. I know that stench.
Yeah.
The union knows Bill very, very well. I could write a book about the shit he has done around the world.
Yeah.
He's smart, but don't believe a word he tells you. Get a lawyer. Get a hold of your book. You might want to talk to someone. Oh, I knocked the mic over. But yeah, basically the whole point was like, that's kind of why I wanted to come on and do this, because this guy and these two producers, Danny and David, have been really hurting musicians for a very long time.
What are they doing with this production? What's going on now?
Well, that's the big question. Who knows what they were promoting it for? But the fact that they were saying, we don't have any money. We can't put you in good housing. We can't do this. We can't afford the run. If you had seen the quality of the video that they took,
wow,
they had probably like 5 or 6 cameras in that,
my God.
like high def cameras, like on swivels, taking high def videos of that run. And it was like, I mean, we're talking lots of money put into just that video production.
Yeah.
Was it different than our show?
Yes.
It was, but it wasn't. There were parts of it, I mean, that were different, but there were parts they basically kind of just said like, wow, yeah, we're just going to steal that intellectual property.
Right.
But then there was a lot of it that just kind of lost a lot of the feel, because one of the producers, David, was directing it. And there was the question of whether that was the intention the whole time, to create this like great product and then have him just like, quote, be the director of this thing and basically like build a product up and then get rid of a lot of the people that did the product, and then he can just kind of direct it. But the little changes that he made to it made it a very impersonal story, and just like, I don't know, it felt very different from what we were doing, because we wanted to have like a kind of sense of community about it. But this one was just kind of glorifying Shlomo in a way that was disingenuous. And I mean,
smaller cast too.
Yeah. Well, they couldn't get actors to fill it out. I mean, I've only talked a little bit about it with Tony White, who is one of the actresses that went over there. And, basically they said, once they got there, they couldn't find the actors to fill out the show. So they were calling back to New York to get whoever they fucking could, like not, no vetting. Like they had like just friends of the actors who were there come, like Josh's wife got a part. Not, she's a great actress, but like, obviously they're just like, hey, can you help us out? It's like a community production, just like whoever they can grab to like fill out the roles.
Mm-hmm.
Janet, didn't you also say when you spoke with Danny, this was sort of my understanding, is that the producers actually didn't like the show that we did. They didn't like the directing decisions that Gabe made.
That's what I was told.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I was told that by Jeremy. They were not happy with the direction of the show. And as far as my thing, I was supposed to go out into the audience with the guitar and lead the band. And I was told that from the beginning. And I'm like, yeah, like I do that already. So, but then when Gabe came on, he had a slightly different version of it, and he wanted to do something different. So who do I follow?
Yeah.
I'm following Gabe. He's the director.
Yeah.
I said, Jimmy, you hire me for a job. I follow who tells me what to do. If you were not happy with Gabe's direction, the way certain things were going, with the show itself and in regards to my part, why didn't you change it? I mean, the whole thing is weird. It's like, you're the producer, you're the man who's paying,
Right. It's also smart for producers to trust your director, because you are not a director. Like Gabe is a professional. He's very good at it. You are not.
No, and I kept checking and double checking. Is my solo part okay? Is this what you're looking for? Is this what you want?
No,
I can change it. I can do this and that. I even sent Jeremy a private video, separate one, showing him what I was going to do. And he's like, oh, this is great. I'm sure that there's going to be a place for you in the Israeli production.
Yeah.
And he said that to me in San Diego.
Yeah.
And so when the whole thing was going down, I was like, well, maybe I'm still okay. Maybe I'm still safe. with this, although I wasn't happy about how everything was going down. I wasn't sure I actually wanted to go.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but in the end, no, no, it's like not taking me, not, wasn't happy with the fact that I hadn't gone out and led the whole pre-show thing with guitar songs, and I'm like, that's easy for me to do. Why didn't somebody tell me to do that?
Right.
I mean, I'm doing my job. I'm doing what's told of me.
Yeah.
And I brought it up too, and I said, you just tell me what to do. I do whatever you want, man.
Yeah.
And so it's a blame game. And then when he
100%.
finally said to me, well, you should be used to this, I was like, you know what?
I can't believe that.
And then he said at the same time, he said, we're getting really good feedback on the Israeli. The Israelis are really excited about the new production. I'm like, why are you even telling me this, Jeremy? It's actually hurting my feelings. Are you trying to hurt my feelings?
Yeah.
I mean, I got very, straight with him.
Yeah.
And because the whole thing was just a real disaster. So, whatever happens with that production happens. But yeah, I'm not. I advise people to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for it. I'd like to, say something and, make a big scene if they try to do it again and warn people about it. But we have a limited amount of time left. I'd like to sort of talk about some of our favorite moments from tour, if I can. Janet, were you involved with the April Fool's prank at all?
I can't remember. Probably not if I can't remember.
Oh, that was great.
All right. Well, this is one of my favorite moments on tour. Basically, on April 1st, all the men are in one dressing room, the women are in another dressing room.
I wasn't involved in this.
Okay. All right. So when we got back from lunch, there was makeup on all of the men's dressing room tables, and I guess the stage manager came in and said, Gabe wants to see you all with eyeliner and blush on for this next scene.
When that happened.
Yeah. And everyone was like, what? That's really weird, but okay, I guess we should do that. And so all the actors put on their blush and like eyeshadow and stuff, and they come out on stage, and we rehearsed for like a good, at least like 45 minutes. Like they're just like doing their scenes and like nobody says anything. And then all of a sudden, Gabe says into the God mic, he says, hey, can we get the house lights on? And the lights go on. It's like, can we get all the men to the front of the stage? And everybody comes up, and Gabe kind of takes a beat, and then he says, why are you guys all wearing makeup? And they're like, well, the stage manager told them. And then like all the girls in the cast go, April Fools. And it was a good prank. It was a solid prank.
That's
ladies.
a solid prank. Yeah. No, they told me about it later. I was mad.
Yeah, Brian and I were spared from the prank because we were musicians.
Oh,
I think they just couldn't afford to buy enough makeup for.
I like to think that they just liked us that much.
Yeah, maybe that's possible.
What I loved, and that's the thing. There were so many things that to love about this that I don't want to downplay. That like there weren't a lot of great times and a lot of great people. I just want to keep repeating that because that's what kind of made this hurt a lot. And our pre-show
yeah,
routine
I was
was
talk about the pre-show too.
Oh yeah, okay. Well,
you go ahead.
It was like it was all just I would be one of the first people out on stage, and like the whole thing was like a hippie communal type of thing, and they would let us just improvise whatever we want and do whatever we want on stage, and just there were I think 5 or 6 different people playing guitar in this, maybe even more. And just in the show in general, so there were all these guitars around, and I had all this percussion equipment that people had around, and we would just sit there and jam, and not even feel like the audience was there. And
We went into it.
Yeah, we went into it, and it brought the whole room together and the vibe, and you were so ready to do this show specifically because like of the vibe that we set at the beginning. And I just remember always looking forward to being like, all right, what's it gonna be this time? It's always gonna be something cool and different, and just a little jam session to loosen everybody up and like get the vibe of love, peace, and happiness going before we did this show. And I loved doing that.
Janet, do you have a memory you want to share?
That too. I absolutely loved all the music that we were playing. I thought Rick Fox's arrangements were beautiful, and I learned a lot. You know, it was a rock band, but it was a little different than the situations I've done in my professional career. I loved playing with you guys. I mean it. You were also patient with me.
Oh, come on.
Wait, what chord is that? You know, and I thought that Rick also really brought out all of our unique talents and let us do our thing, you know. And I think that was super cool, you know. And let me go up there and do my rock and roll guitar thing, you know. And then I enjoyed switching from guitar acoustic to electric, and it's such a variation in the music and in the arrangements. It was really I had to concentrate and focus quite a lot on stage, and I actually enjoyed that part. And I just enjoyed watching all the amazing talent on stage, especially Josh and his like just fantastic voice.
Yeah.
And so I personally enjoyed the work. I enjoyed every day. Every day we had to get up, and it was like, oh, we're gonna play tonight. You know, it's like,
it was so much fun just being in the playing mode. I loved that part. It was just so much fun being on stage too, and like being closer to, personality and mentally and emotionally to the actors than like most anything I'd done before besides hair.
Yeah.
And Janet, your blind guitarist scene was always made me crack up.
Yeah.
It was always great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I felt good about you know, getting better as the show went on. I got more comfortable with the acting part, and you know, by the end of it, you know, I was just like, wow, you know, I just did some acting on stage. I'd never really done that, you know, and that was really fun too. But I enjoyed the whole show, the whole teamwork of it all, with so many parts and pieces. It ended up moving like a real solid, smooth machine. We had that shit down, and we were so ready to. We could have taken it to Broadway, no problem.
Yeah,
you know, we could have taken it to a bigger stage and on a bigger level. And of course, I enjoyed the general hang with all you guys after shows and just getting to know everybody. I mean, that was great. That's why we do what we do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, Taylor Guitar Tour.
Yeah, of course. Janet took us on a tour of Janet knows the president of Taylor, or what's his?
You know, I've been endorsed by them for many years, and I know the artist rep there, and he's like, let's go out to lunch. Let's bring your company to the down to corporate, and you can have a tour of the factory.
Yeah, we got to see how the sausage is made.
Another thing I have to mention here too was they had to get a set of vibes for me out there. You don't fly with vibes, and vibraphone, just to put that out there. So not the only thing I'm actually talking about. Anyways, so we had to get a vibraphone out there, and the one that they rented coincidentally was he rented it from a guy that just lived in the area and was working on the show, and he's like, I got a set of vibes. And turns out that set of vibes was used on the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds album.
You saying that's so cool.
Oh, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm like touching a piece of like rock history. I was just like the chills every time I got to play that. Me and like, this is in Pet Sounds. That's awesome. Like that probably was the coolest part. Like all the other things were cool, but I play on the vibes from Pet Sounds. Oh my God, that's gonna be on my resume till I die.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Janet, I know you have to go. So we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much for.
I just want to say one.
Yeah, go ahead. Thing.
You know, the debacle of it all and the business side and all of that. And I just want to reiterate kind of what Brian's saying as well. And I think what we all feel is that that's kind of a blip in the whole thing.
Right.
You know, it didn't work out or whatever. But hey, we made new friends. We had this amazing experience. I'm sure we all learned a lot in all kinds of ways. I certainly did with everything, including music stuff. And you never stop learning, how to play music well, and the whole teamwork thing. And that was all worth the other shit that happened.
Absolutely.
That was way more worth it to me than all the other bullshit.
I think a lot of musicians sort of fear the idea of working in a show that's the same every night. But I have to say, it was so amazing to watch everyone go out there and do the same, do it every night, but like to see them invested in every moment and just like sort of discovering their emotions or their character on the spot and just making these subtle little shifts to keep it interesting for themselves. It was really amazing and a beautiful thing to be a part of.
I loved every minute of it. I didn't love the business part of it being all screwed up, but I love you guys. I love everybody in it, and who knows when all of our paths will cross again. You never know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'll definitely be out to LA again, and Janet, you become kind of a mentor of mine of sorts, and I appreciate you helping me learn about the industry and what to look out for and who to talk to and things like that.
Happy to do so. Yeah. My son, happy to do so.
You're amazing, Janet. So great to hear your voice.
Yeah, you guys are too. You take care. Can't wait till this comes out, and appreciate you asking me to do it.
Absolutely. All right.
And stranger, Brian. Don't be a stranger.
Oh, definitely. I'm gonna try and make a West Coast trip sometime soon, so we'll definitely get together at some point. We way overdue.
Also, I just want to congratulate Brian. He just got fucking engaged like a week ago. That's crazy.
What?
Oh, you didn't know?
I just got engaged in Puerto Rico.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah, I'm engaged to an incredible woman that runs a music school and does artwork that's made out of like old cut up sheet music. Her Instagram handle is Lexicon of Love. So I throw that little shameless promo in there.
Oh yeah. But also, if you guys have anything you want to promote, please chime in.
Well, my band you were discussing earlier, the 4-piece all guitar band, we just finished a new. As you said, we do have some covers, but we did this one in particular because of the Rocket Man movie. We got inspired to do a cover of Rocket Man, a real unusual one. And we just finished it. It's getting mixed, and we're going to be coming out with a new video of it.
Awesome.
So cool.
Just,
how can people find it?
Yeah, keep an eye out. thestringrevolution.com.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Brian, anything?
No, I just hope that this goes to show that if you're a musician out there, you gotta know a lot of stuff about just keep your business side tight, and B, if you've been through a tough situation before that was similar to this or different or something like that, it's really easy to feel down about that and to feel really hurt. And I definitely was right after it happened. But this conversation and just when I think back on it, I remember the good times, and I remember how many great things, like Janet was saying, came out of this. So if you've been screwed over as a musician, I know it might feel like the end of the world, but that is there are two sides to every single coin, and I guarantee that eventually you'll be able to look back on it and find some good out of it. Like I certainly do with this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it is in this business anyway. You always learn things. It's a whole fucking journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Perseverance is the key.
Yeah. And we do it because we love what we do, and we're lucky for that. And for anybody who, gets down on the fact that the music industry is not what it used to be, like, I encourage you to go to NAMM and just see how many people are there making new products and just so excited about music. Like, you can find inspiration all over the place, and keep
it's true.
Yeah, keep on keeping on, musicians. It's
keep on being rad rocks.
Yeah.
Rad rockin'.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. This was Between the Gigs. Thanks again to Janet and Brian, and hope to have some new shows for you all soon.
Woo!
Take care.
Thank you, Fender. Thank you, Aguilar. Thank you, DR. And Radial. Love you guys. Follow Like Minds Trio at Like Minds Trio on Instagram, at Marty Eisenberg on Instagram. Message me, tell me things, tell me dirty little things. Tell me about what kind of podcast you want to hear. Tell me who would you like me to interview. I'd love to make more of these podcasts, so it's great to hear from everyone. Have a wonderful whatever time it is, and a pleasant the next time it will be.